Welcome to another Lore You Should Know. I am Greg Tito, and this is the segment where we jump into specific parts of Dungeons & Dragons lore for you to use in your game, or just because it's fun to know these things. I am joined by Wes Schneider. Hi, Wes.
Hey, thanks for having me.
We are going to be talking about one of the domains of dread that is described in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, which comes out on May 18th and is a compendium of all ways to run horror using Dungeons and Dragons, and that includes different domains of dread. And this one is about Hazlan, which is an interesting one because it encompasses so many different parts of horror and Dungeons and Dragons. So, Wes, why don't you give us kind of the overview of what's happening in Hazlan?
So one of the things that we wanted to do with all of the domains in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft is we didn't want to just explore a type of horror or various types of horror. We really wanted to highlight D&D horror. Like, what are the horror stories that really only high fantasy, D&D, like the stories around your table, what are those stories that only you can tell with RPGs like this? So this is where the domain of Hazlan came up, because in the past, Hazlan was a domain that was ruled over by the wizard Hazlick, and Hazlick is straight up from the Forgotten Realms. He's a red wizard of Fae. And he did things that were terrible even by red wizard standards, and managed to get himself a domain of dread pulled into Ravenloft and having an entire domain formed around him.
So it's kind of as if Raistlin didn't have all that drama, right? Like, it's just like, all right, here's evil wizard let loose and playing with that.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many stories of like, amoral wizard did it. Like, why is there an owl there? It was a wizard. Why did this thing happen? It was a wizard. This is this thrown into one domain and really taken up to 11.
All right, so what does that look like when players arrive on Hazlan?
It's a mess. Perfectly true. Like, perfectly honestly, everything that could magically have gone wrong in Hazlan has.
What are some examples? What's gone wrong? What did you see?
Well, we've got a few different things. We've got an entire edge of the map called the Seething, which is literally falling apart, like the world is crumbling into nothingness. There's, in the middle of the map, a vast area where the mists have actually broken through the middle of the domain called the Lacuna, and it is stretching out and encompassing or devouring portions of the domain. This is one of the domains where so many of the domains of dread have this sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, everything's normal here vibe to them. And the people are very much just like, yes, this is normal life. Things are fine. That's not so much the case in Hazlan. In Hazlan, since there is a high population of wizards here, the pretty much ability to cast spells immediately puts you at a higher level than anybody who does not have the ability to cast spells. You have groups of immoral wizards that are encouraged by Hazlick to plumb the depths of magic, to really like test the boundaries of what can be done, to explore all manner of amoral science and wizardry, completely heedless of the ramifications, and the ramifications are literally destroying the domain.
Wow. So the amoral wizards that you talked about, are those other visitors to this, or are those people who are just trapped in this domain that were similar to Hazlick?
So Hazlick has set up a whole magocracy where it's just like, I'm a wizard, so wizards are better than everybody, and anyone who isn't a wizard, well, they're probably good for something. Let's find out what they're good for. So you have this immediate, like, bizarre stratification between Hazlan at the top as this wizard overlord, all of his varied apprentices, who pretty much everybody who can cast magic is tied in with him, whether as an apprentice or some other servant, which is not a great gig to have, but sure is better than living in these towns where there's not enough food, there's not enough water, they're being plagued by, various monsters or like bizarre magical weather or other disasters.
So that brings up an interesting thought for me, which is kind of throughout all of Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft. It's like, who are the people who live here? Are they actual people? Are they souls that have somehow been trapped in this afterlife-esque, entrapment zone? Or are they made up? Are they not even real? Are they just, figments of the Dark Lord's imagination?
So the short answer to that is yes.
I knew you were going to say that.
So the dark powers are very much in control of every aspect of reality here. And what the dark powers are, what their agendas are, what they're seeking to do, that's very much up to you as the DM. But the ultimate goal is to tell a good horror story, to make it creepy and impactful.
I see. So it's a little bit like, here are the tools, tell the stories that you want to tell.
Yeah.
Interesting. And I think it's important for folks to realize that when you're talking about dark powers, you're not talking about the Dark Lords. The Dark Lords are the ones who aren't in charge of each one of these domains, but the dark powers is kind of this nebulous, evil entities.
Yes, absolutely. All of the Dark Lords of Ravenloft are imprisoned within their domains, and their wardens are this mysterious cadre of powerful, sinister forces. And what their agendas are, entirely up to you. But if you want to go globe-trotting, if you want to go to every one of the domains and reveal the deeper, really conspiracy behind it all, you can absolutely do that.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait for more folks to get into Hazlan and all the other domains of dread we're talking about here in Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft on May 18th. Wes, how can people get in touch with you, maybe ask you some questions about what's happening with all these domains?
Oh, sure. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm on there at FWesSchneider. Yeah, feel free to give me a yell, and if I can say something, happy to talk more.
Exciting. Awesome. Great. Well, I'm really, really interested in you creeping everyone out. So please only respond to people as a dark power going forward if you can.
Easy. Duh. Already doing it. Not a problem.
Awesome. Thank you, Wes.
Well, thanks for having me.